On this episode of Carnage, the sun is shining, the birds are singing, and all is good with the world because Supermang is back. That's right, the Supermang is back. Our little budget V6 project is back in the ring. We've sort of put it aside for a little bit while we've concentrated on the MX-5 and the Trovo. Well, those things have kind of, been hitting their numbers. The Trovo's in the 9s, the MX-5's about to dip into the 8s. And this was much more budget orientated. We bought a V6 VN Commodore, we put an L67 in it. We had some stumbling blocks along the way, but the idea was always to run 12s with kind of a budget V6 build, and we've done that. We ran 12.74 at 107.5 mile an hour, so that's not too bad. 12-second V6, that's nothing to sneeze at. And there she is in all her glory. It's looking a little bit dirty and dusty under there, unfortunately. We did the budget sort of water to air intercooler, eBay cooler, and yeah. I think it's time for us to do more with it. In fact, we've got a couple little things that need to be done. We've got some maintenance things that need to be done, because if you remember back to when we ran it at the Holden Nationals, it had a leaking O-ring at the front. Well, I've bought a whole new set of O-rings to replace all that stuff so we can fix its leaks. We also have a larger throttle body. Let me just dig that out. Here he is. Made by our good mate Paul in Sydney, Paul Rappo. He's made a custom Supermang throttle body. So larger throttle body, 69mm, made that special for us. So we're going to throw that on and see how much of a difference it makes. We're going to make some pulley changes. I want to do some sort of maintenance stuff in the front of the blower. I think the coupling's a little bit worn, which is why it's making a bit of noise. And we have a converter on the way. So we're going to throw a converter in this thing from the guys at All Fast Converters over in WA. They're sending us over a converter. We're going to throw it in it, take it out and see what difference a converter makes. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot. Bigger throttle body, we're obviously going to retune the converter. I think we'll see mid to low 12s. That would be amazing. But we have more coming. It won't happen this episode. However, it will happen, but check this out. There she is. 4.2 litres of Supermang goodness. So we have a Mace Engineering 4.2 litre stroker kit in this. So forged pistons. It has, well, let's flip it upside down. Good rods, so forged rods. It's got a 4.2 litre stroker crank in it, so 3.7 inch versus 3.4 inch, I believe. The guys of Top Torque have assembled this bottom end. They've done all the machining, all the clearancing and that sort of thing. They've had to clearance some areas for the extra stroke. So that's all been done. But yeah, the idea is once we run this one more time with the converter and that sort of thing, see what it does, that will pull that engine out, this engine will go in, and we'll see how 4.2 litres goes in the old Supermang. It should be a lot better. But, like I said, that is for a later day. We'll put that away for now. So let's kick things off by removing the old bonnet and fix those O-rings so she doesn't leak anymore. It causes a mess. Move forward. So here's our solution at the track. We cable tied a rag around the offending area to soak up any leakages. I mean, it wasn't leaking a lot, but just enough to be annoying. while we're here, we might change this pulley as well. I think it's got the 2.5 inch or 2.55 inch, and it doesn't seem to have really given us any horsepower over, say, the 2.8 or 3 inch. So yeah, sounds good. Doesn't really make any power. It's more heat than horsepower. Yep, she's pretty dry. Okay, there we go. You can see why I didn't want to do this at the track. Okay. All the silicone. Yep, and that O-ring is kaput. Yay. So right now I've removed the offending part that was leaking. However, there is another O-ring, just 2 more bolts in, and I figure it's a good time to replace that as well, because yeah, it's always a problem child. New and new. That's good. Should have popped that out while it was still. There we go. What an assembly. You know, this tube with the O-ring on it goes through that tube, and then, you know, you've got the other one down there. Engineers. Genuine Holden O-ring. So I bought basically two of each O-ring on the front of the engine, just so I've got spares. But yeah, here we go. Vaso on there, so it slides right in. So I know what you're probably thinking, Scott, why did you buy $50 worth of O-rings from Holden? And the reason for that is, A, they're made out of a different material to your average O-ring, and B, they actually fit perfectly rather than your average, you know, generic O-ring out of a box, you know, out of one of those multi-packs, which never seem to work right, and certainly never seem to fit right, and always seem to leak. We've been through this, you know, the one I pulled out of the little tube, there's a black one. Yep, it's absolutely deformed. The one that came out of this one was actually broken, so again, not great. So sometimes it's just better to buy genuine, and that way you know it's going to fit and it's going to work. There we go. Right, now it's time to change our pulley. That is the 2.55 inch one. This is 2.9, this is 3.2 or 1, one or the other. We have 3 pulleys but only 2 belts. And if you remember back to when we dyno tested this thing, we didn't have a belt that fitted the middle pulley. So unfortunately, you go back on the shelf until we find a belt that fits you. That pulley suits that belt. This pulley, or this pulley, suits this belt. So we're going to use this one. Now we know this one made just over 290 horsepower at the wheels, so that's fine. So let's put that bad boy back on. That was interesting. There was oil inside that pulley, which might explain why our blower's been a little bit noisy. Wonder if we have a leaky front seal. Okay, now for the throttle body. Who says size doesn't matter? Okay. Okay. Whew. I think now we just fill it with water, check that supercharger oil, and we'll be done. Nope, it is full of oil. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Circulate the water a little bit. Start a motor. Right, so Supermang runs. Yes, it is running a little bit rough, and that's because, well, one of the reasons is that the E85 in the tank is the same E85 from Holdernats, which was over 6 months ago, and it does go off pretty quickly. So we've got to go down, get some fresh E85. That'll make it run a lot better. Also, I forgot to reset the TPS on this new throttle body because, you know, we just bolted the throttle body on, hit the key, the voltage values were out of sync. So I had to get into the Haltech and just do basically a resetting of the TPS, what is 0, what is 100%. That's done now, so it runs a bit better, but does still need fresh fuel. Anyway, so we've got that. We should be on the dyno later today, we hope. We'll see what happens. However, a new present has just arrived. Let's go have a look at that. So we have a box here from Simon at All Fast Converters in WA. Simon does a bunch of our boxes and converters. He is a great guy and he does great converters and transmissions. MX-5 runs one of his transmissions. That transmission has never been out of that car since we built the MX-5, right? So what's that, 5 years now? It's done multiple runs, dyno runs, everything. It has his converter in it as well. What else? Trollbo has his box and converter in it as well. Trollbo goes 9s. Simon also does the boxes for Harry Haig, so that's in the Chevelle in the States, which goes 850s. His 7-second HQ here in Australia. So Simon does good transmissions and good converters. So if you're looking for a guy who can build your box that's not going to die and a great converter, Simon's your man. So he's sent us this with the hashtag MangMangLife for Supermang. He does have a pretty wicked sense of humour. He also runs a V6 Camry that shows you where his brain's at. And it runs quick. It's a very quick V6 Camry. Something for shits and giggles, but he's been around the drag scene forever and has a massive knowledge of everything drag racing, right from funny cars through to street cars, so he's been there, seen it and done it all. Here we go. Oh, it's so tiny. Look at that. 3-bolt converter, as it should be, for Turbo 700 into the VN. Now, this should make things a bit more spicy. So, the old Supermang, it gets off the line, but it doesn't, it's not breaking records with its 60-foot times, that's for sure. This should change that. So, I reckon we'll see a couple tenths off the 60-footer and basically a few more tenths off down the track. So What's our best so far? 12.74, 107 mile an hour. I reckon just the converter will be down under the 12.5s pretty easily. I'm hoping low 12s. That would be awesome. So, we might try and get this into the car today. I've also got to replace that starter motor. As you may have noticed, it had some troubles starting. And so I'm going to bite the bullet, buy a new starter motor. So we'll do the starter, maybe do the converter before it goes on the dyno. There's a lot to do. We're supposed to have this ready for the dyno this afternoon. So I figure, let's just go do it. Thankfully, on this one, there is only 3 converter bolts. So we have fixed the leaks, we've changed the throttle body, we've changed the pulley, we've put the converter back in. We've kind of glossed over the converter bit because you don't need to see all that. I mean, we've put the box in and out of this thing a million times. So that's done, it runs, it works. Of course, I took it out for a drive. I actually took it home, give it a test run out to home and back, did that fine. And then I decided to head into town a bit, and then this happened. So, in typical Carnage fashion, the Supermang has just up and died on me. I don't know why. It was all going pretty well until it wasn't. I don't know. It's either got no spark, no fuel, one of those things. Who knows why? And now it's raining. So now we play the waiting game for the tow truck. Fun. Lovely day for it. Fantastic. I don't know why it does these things to me.
They're always the way, mate.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, well, that was fun, wasn't it? It's always fun to break down in the rain, but big shout out to Barry from Always Towing for coming to rescue us in the rain. He does a lot of our localised towing and fantastic at it. So Always Towing for your towing needs. Anyway, so we got the VN back to the workshop, worked through the problem. Tried coil packs and all that sort of thing first, didn't make any difference. Made sure it had enough fuel in it, didn't make any difference. So basically the fact that it had fuel, had no spark, so what could that be? And when you're talking V6 Commodores, you're talking the crank angle sensor. Fairly common problem. It's buried right down there next to the balancer. So it was a balancer off job. So on the hoist, balancer off, little protective shield off, replaced the sensor, put it all back together, hit the key, and yes, fired straight up, didn't it? So, yeah. What a wonderful little device. Just leaves you dead in the middle of the road in the traffic. You know, because I was basically putting along and it just went boom, shut off. Just totally shut off and just burr. So you're going to immediately find the edge of the road, force your way through traffic and in the rain. Thanks. So anyway, it runs, it drives. I'll even prove it. well, I'll prove the running part anyway. There we go. She runs. It lives again. So where do we go from here? Well, I do want to fix the blower at some point. Whether it happens before the dyno or not sure. However, it's going to go on the dyno, and then we're going to race it. I want to see how it goes with this new converter. I mean, this new converter, it feels very, very exciting. I mean, I haven't really got on it yet because the car is still untuned, and that throttle body has changed the tune quite a bit. I've already had Zane do a bit of a tickle on the idle. That's why it idles so nice now. When we first fired it up, not so much. However, idle's really good now. But yeah, dyno, race, I reckon low 12s, that would be nice. We'll see how that goes, but you'll see all that in a future episode of Carnage.